another episode of the Tapestry Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Francois Booker Drew, and this show is really designed to bring on amazing women, but I've been tripping you all up lately because I've been inviting some men on the show because they've got some information that I think you need to know. And so today I am so excited to bring a new friend that when we met, and we're going to talk about it, when we met, we immediately clicked. And so I want you to be able to learn more about these amazing guests and how you can tap into their nuggets of knowledge and use it to transform your life and make things for you the best life you've ever had. And so Steve Harper is here with us, and we're going to talk about rippling today. So let me tell you a little bit about Steve before we actually dive in. He has become one of the most sought after speakers and business strategists on the power of deepening and strengthening the power of connections, a process that he calls rippling. So you already know I love this relationship thing, and that's why we brought him on the show. He has this unique and refreshing approach to how and why individuals, organizations, and even our society can and must reach outside of the box to connect. He is literally changing lives and impacting corporate bottom line dollars just because of his approach. Steve is a successful entrepreneur, a professional speaker, author, and strategist who has successfully uncovered the secret to creating powerful, long-lasting connections and their impact on one's personal and professional life. He transitioned his experience into unyielding customer focus into a successful consulting practice, appropriately named The Ripple Effect, after his first very successful book of the same title. And so we're going to put up on the website more information where you can get Steve's book, and we're going to even talk about his upcoming book. He is also the owner of two software firms, Owner Insight and RS Planner, which is Facility Insight, where his ripple ideas and strategies are changing the game and the software as service business. And so we'll also list that website so you can find out more about that. So Steve, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you said yes.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So let's talk about how we first rippled, because we met through a dear friend, mutual friend, Barry Silverberg, who had you come out and work with him at Austin College with the nonprofit Austin program. And I do some work with Barry. But talk about what is rippling and how we first did that. What did we do? Because that was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really, really was excited to meet you. And, Barry Silverberg will be excited to hear his name on the podcast, right? For sure. He's such a great guy. I've actually known Barry for a good number of years through the Austin Center for Nonprofits for Austin Community College. And how you and I connected originally was we were doing an event for some of their past program participants. And with COVID happening the way it was, normally they would get together for trainings and workshops and have the opportunity to do a little networking. And of course, current conditions wouldn't allow for that. So they asked me if there was an opportunity for us to present kind of the Ripple philosophy and program, which I've done for Barry and his team in the past in his different classes. And you happen to be in the particular meeting that we did. And what we did that night was actually an 8-minute Ripple, which was networking for non-networking people. And it was all centered around what I call Ripple connection questions that are fun to ask and fun to answer, but they're really designed to give you some insight into the person that you're connecting with. And so it was unusual because we were doing it on Zoom, but we made it work, and it was so much fun.
It was so much fun. And, typically I'll see workshops and I'll go, I don't know if I'm going to do that. And it's okay. I don't know what it was, but I guess because, I love that social capital and I love relationships and connections. And so I saw it and I went, okay, if Barry is going to put this on, it must be good. It was an amazing experience. I did not think that I would be so engaged with connecting to these complete strangers on Zoom because technology is a little different than doing it face to face. And you did an amazing job in bringing people together. So talk a little bit more about what is rippling. And then I want to know what got you into this space where you were like, I need to help folks build better connections with one another?
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you asked. So rippling, in my opinion, is any action, big or small, that you take on behalf of someone else. And one of the biggest actions you can take is actually connecting with someone else. And so when I first brought out my book, one of the core concepts that I talk about is building your network authentically. And it's not about job title, and it's not about job responsibility, and it's oftentimes not even revolving around a business relationship. The best relationships I had as an entrepreneur came from getting to know that person first. And of course, business tends to come, later, but all too often you see people that network that do it wrong. They're either, worried about getting their message out or shoving a business card in your hand or your face. And, those things never worked for me. And so what I really wanted to do is kind of challenge those thought processes and show people that, by getting to know one another on a more personal level and uncovering some of these gems that everybody has, right? These stories that we've all got about how we got into the job that we, got into, or what brought us to where we're living in present, or what we're passionate about outside of our professional lives. Those things all have the basis of creating some real connection and what I call connection points. Those connection points are things that make that person unique and indifferent to you, right? It's not job title, it's not job responsibility. So when the book came out, I created this event called the 8-Minute Ripple, which was an event that you came to that you couldn't bring business cards, you couldn't tell people what you did, you couldn't even tell them what you did, or where you graduated from school, right? Anything that noted status. And what was really funny was that, most people didn't know what to do because we're all accustomed to that. So what do you do question, right? Yeah. And that was off the table. You couldn't do that. And so people were a little bit like, I don't know, how to do it. So we created these questions as sort of that ability to get those conversations started, and it just blows people away. So whether we do it in person or like with Barry's event, doing it online, it's always amazing to see how people respond and react to it, but almost everybody ends up learning something amazing about somebody else, but more importantly about themselves.
And what I loved about it was in such a short amount of time, you really did connect to people. And the crazy thing is, two of the folks that, I got to do that kind of private ripple with, we still are in contact with each other. So we're on LinkedIn and, we share information and they'll comment. And so it really did create the opportunity for me to meet some new people. And it wasn't, as I talk about a transactional relationship, it wasn't really that at all. We really started learning more about each other and wanting to dig more and see how we could help one another. And so I just love how you use this process to really change people's lives. I know that you want to do this all over and use this as a tool to really help people go to the next level in their relationship building. How are you leveraging this ripple philosophy and what you do?
Well, no matter where you are, whether you're trying to, build your own career, whether you're trying to build a team for your startup or your organization, or you're leading a major corporation, we've been able to ripple in all those environments. And really, at the end of the day, success really does come down to a couple of simple things, right? Who you know, how you connect, and ultimately having this mindset of those people being available and accessible to you to help you when you need it, right? And I think a lot of people don't look at building their network the right way. We look at quantity versus quality.
Right.
And I know that's kind of overused a lot of times, but it really is something that I think people need to look at, because you really are the sum total of the people you surround yourself with. And if you're only following, the path of people that are similar thinking to you or at the same level of experience, well, your view never changes, right? And at the end of the day, the diversity of your network, I think, is super critical. And so when I talk to corporations specifically, I talk to them about not just employee engagement, because that's something that seems like every coach and consultant is talking about it, but really, what are you doing to actually make it easy for people to connect and engage? If people are working across departments and trying to work on specific priorities, it's really difficult for them to come up with the innovation and the creativity if they don't have any personal connection to the people they're supposed to be working with.
Right.
So you have to set the table in a way that allows those people to start to get to know one another, to explore it in a way that allows to take that mystery and sort of that trepidation off the table for those folks, to make it very simple and easy. And so I think it's key for organizations, but I also think if you're coming in as an individual that's interested in expanding your career or moving to the next level, every individual that's looking at you from a leadership perspective is saying, how well do they get along with other people? How well can they connect?
Exactly.
And can they bridge ideas, across, different platforms in order to make those things come to fruition?
And what you reminded me of is, in social capital, there are these two terms. I'm about to put on my academic hat, but there is bonding social capital and there's bridging. And I think a lot of people are very comfortable with bonding, which is connecting to people that are just like them.
Yep.
The goal is how do we do what you've talked about is bridging social capital. And that is connecting to people that are very different than we are, because to your point, if we're always around the same kind of people, we are sharing rehashed information and there is not an opportunity for growth or to be challenged. And so the fact that you are doing this in corporate spaces where people can really get an opportunity to connect to each other and really begin to learn one another is huge, because when we know one another, then it makes me more of an advocate for you, because now I understand your situation and I have more empathy for who you are because we have relationship. And I think that's what's missing so much in our society, are these spaces for people to come together to really get to know each other, to see that although there is difference and we don't want to minimize that, we do have a lot in common.
Absolutely. And I used to be CEO of a tech company, and one of the challenges that they had as they were growing and expanding was, as you add more and more people, it's harder for people to know one another and sort of have that understanding of cross-functionality. So we did Taco Thursday as a mechanism for the company would pay for the tacos. We would all get together for about 45 minutes every Thursday morning, and we opened up the environment for people to engage and connect. And we did a couple of ripples from time to time. Obviously, I'm the ripple man, so I love doing those kinds of things. But sometimes it's just a matter of throwing out a topic and getting people to talk, and creating the environment, I think, is super critical. And I, certainly one of the key components is not just as saying, hey, let's get together for a corporate, get together once a quarter or once a year. Those things don't have the impact that I think leadership thinks that it does. The reality is you have to invest in connection. It has to happen continually for those relationships to really take root. As an academic, one of the hardest things to do when you make an impression on somebody is to keep that impression moving forward, right? To grow it. And so when you plant those seeds of initial connection, you can't just expect those seeds to grow without attention and focus and effort to build the relationships. And I think in today's world, because we are so attention deficit and we tend to want everything right now, we expect that if I put this effort into this relationship and it doesn't yield results immediately, then, it's not worth, pursuing. And the reality is you have to make, I guesstimate somewhere between 6 and 8 positive interactions, conversations, contribute to, somebody's project or idea, or engage at some level before people actually take down their guard and realize, hey, you're someone that I really should be paying attention to and get to know better.
And so what advice would you give to people who are, working from home? They're in this environment where, I hear people say all the time, well, it's hard to connect with technology. And I don't agree with that, because there are ways to do it. What advice would you give to someone who wants to build their network or leverage their existing network? What would they do?
Well, first and foremost, I think you have to really look at your network. Who do you have in there? And who do you really always ask yourself as you go? And I generally tell people you want to cull the herd from time to time. You want to look at your LinkedIn connections and say, is this someone that I really want to get to know and get to know better? And if so, what am I going to do about it, right? And what happens there is you'll find